Hi guys, welcome back aboard good old Athena. This week for some Czone digital switching fun, a look at the upcoming projects for this winter, and maybe a tour of the area we'll be calling home for the next 5 months. My name is Mess and this is my fiance Ava. I've spent the last 5 years refitting a Warrior 38. That process has been documented in hundreds of videos here on YouTube. It turned out to be an almost complete rebuild, but about a month ago we finally untied the lines and have started cruising full time. For controlling our lighting and some of the electronic gizmos here aboard Athena, we're using what's called digital switching. Boiled all the way down to its most basic form, digital switching is just a way of operating relays remotely. But with this Czone stuff, we can do a lot more cool stuff. And in this video, we're going to take a look at some of those features. We're going to be installing this little control panel so we can turn on and off stuff from the companionway. That's going to be very handy. We'll also get this box hooked up so we can use these key fobs to turn on and off the lights. And I want to install these dual color lights out on the Dodger in the cockpit. To be able to hook the lights here in the saloon and the head up to our digital switching, we'll also be installing this Contact 6 Plus box. Why use digital switching? It's certainly in no way a must-have item to be able to sail, but having said that, there are some upsides to it. It can simplify your wiring, and it can also mean running a lot less cables throughout your boat. Aha, Mass! But what happens if your fancy box of magic fails? This is the Contact 6 Plus box we'll be adding here in the saloon to control lighting and maybe some navigational instruments and stuff like that. Now, in case this fails, it is super easy to bypass the box. This has 6 separate outputs, and each of those outputs has one of these little rows here with 3 connectors in there. These are for ATO or ATC fuses, and this would be the normal position for an ATC or ATO fuse. In case the box dies or the NMA 2000 network fails, or if I for whatever reason need to bypass the box, all I need to do is to move this fuse from here and up to here. That will completely bypass the logic and the internals of the box. So while I am adding a layer of, let's call it abstraction, to the wiring diagram, it's nothing that we can't bypass, and it's even very easy to bypass. As I've mentioned, we already have a little bit of digital switching here aboard Athena. We have 3 boxes hidden here in the hanging locker in the forward cabin. Please excuse the mess in here. We're not done wiring all of this yet, so I don't have the covers on here yet. But yeah, down here we have a signal interface. This allows us to hook up physical buttons and control the digital switching that way. This is an example of one of those buttons. So if I hit this button, the light here in the forward cabin turns off. Hitting that physical switch notifies the signal interface here that then notifies the controller up here to turn on the light in the ceiling. There are 2 Czone boxes up here. This one over here is used for navigational equipment like AIS, radar, nav lights, stuff like that. And this one is used for purely lighting. As of right now, the only way we can control the digital switching is by those physical switches out in the forward cabin, or by the chart plotter here at the nav station and the one up in the cockpit. As an example, if I want to turn on the deck light, I go in here and I find power deck light, and I just click that on, and the deck light is now on. That's a good example of a basic digital switching setup. It's very convenient to be able to turn on the nav lights, the deck lights, the radar, the AIS and that stuff from the chart plotter up in the cockpit, so we don't have to come down below. But of course we can make it even more user-friendly by adding a real physical button thing. Before moving aboard Athena, I lived for 6 or 7 years on a small 30-foot sailboat, and something I'm really missing from that sailboat is a switch near the companionway to turn on and off the lights. That way when you get home at dark, you can just turn it on and there's no fumbling around to find the switches and stuff. It's just click and the lights are on. Aboard Oblix, that was pretty easy to pull off because there were only 2 LEDs in the ceiling and that was it. So it was just a single wire and we're done. But here aboard Athena, the lights are kind of split into zones, and it would just be a nightmare to wire that up to a single switch up there. But that's a good example of where digital switching really shines, because with a single push of one of these buttons, once this is programmed, I can turn off all the lights, and all it requires is a connection to the NMA 2000 network. Don't worry about how the companionway area is looking right now. That's also on the to-do list for this winter, so it'll look a lot better in the spring. But yep, that is the panel basically installed. To hide the NMA 2000 cable here on the back so we can get it up underneath the headline, I am going to have to build a little box, but yeah, that's not a big deal. Before I screw this in place, we might as well go ahead and add the stickers on there that I know we want. I'll leave 2 empty down here because I'm not entirely sure what we want to do there, but so far we've got cockpit lights, cabin lights, deck lights, and anchor light. I've tucked the NMEA 2000 cable up underneath the headliner to hide it. That was fairly straightforward, but to be able to actually connect the cable, I need a 4-way connector, and that's not going to show up until tomorrow. So why don't we use the rest of today by getting these guys installed. These are IP67 rated LEDs, so we can install them out in the cockpit, and they've got both red and white light in the same LED. So by installing these out there, we'll have both white and red light, and they're also supposed to be dimmable. The plan is to install these up here in the Dodger. They're a little on the big side. I hope they'll fit. Fingers crossed. Yes, that looks perfect. Before installing the lights, I soldered cables onto the wires from both lights, and I made sure to cover the joints with copious amounts of heat shrink. Then it was just a matter of putting up the lights and tucking the cables inside of the Dodger to hide them before running them inside of the boat through a scan strut cable seal.
While Mads is diligently working on the boat, I thought I would go around and give you guys a tour of the marina. And the first stop is really close and something I'm really excited about. It's a fender step, and it is exactly what the name implies. It's a fender to get on and off the boat. And the funny thing is, we got this when we got here to Gosport from the Chandleries, and they're made by the same brand as our other fenders, and it's Dan Fender, and they're from Denmark. So we came all the way to the UK to pick up a brand new fender from Denmark. But I love it. It makes getting in and out of the boat super easy. The next stop is just a quick walk down the pontoon to somewhere I know Mads is very excited about. So this boat right behind me is Sir Robin Knox Johnston's. He was the first person to circumnavigate single-handedly, winning the Times Golden Globe race in 1968 and 69. This is the exact boat he did it in, and it's pretty cool. It's in the same marina as us. Gosport Marina is also the home to the Clipper Race, which was kind of the brainchild of Sir Robert Knox Johnston. The Clipper Race is a 40,000 nautical mile race, and Clipper provides these 70-foot sailboats, and pretty much anybody can do it. The race is for non-racers, so if you want to do it, you can just apply and be accepted. That's wild. Right outside the gate is the marina office where the lovely, lovely staff is, and the laundry and the bathrooms, and most importantly, the showers, where you can control your own temperature, and you do not appreciate controlling your own temperature until you've been to enough marinas where they don't let you. And the facilities are very nice, very clean. And just steps outside of the marina gate, there's not only one, but 2 Chandleries. Mess is in boatwork heaven. And not to mention, there is a ton of boat industry here, from stainless steel work to sails and canvas work. Anything we need to get done here, we will be able to. In more historical boat news, right next to the marina and behind these bushes is the original site of the Campers and Nicholson's shipyard. They were known for well over 150 years for building really well-built and designed sailboats. Today, as you can hear, there's still boat work going on. It's no longer by Campers and Nicholson's, but by Premier, who also own Gosport Marina. And here's the famous giant metal mooring ball waiting to scratch up someone's boat. Very near the marina is the Gosport Ferry, where you can hop on and take a trip across the channel to Portsmouth. There's a bunch of shopping and restaurants, and you can even check out Old Portsmouth, where apparently there's the oldest office building. We're gonna have to check that out. And then if you follow the path next to the ferry, there's another marina, Hassler Marina. We also got the scoop that if you buy ferry tickets in bulk, it's much cheaper, which we did, and it is. It's a really good deal. As soon as you get off the ferry, you run into High Street, where there's coffee shops, grocery stores, the post office, and a library. I'm excited for the library. I heard rumors that there's some kind of crocheting club going on in the winter. Here's the old Castle Tavern right outside the marina. This is where all the yachties come after a long day of sailing. Okay, now we're gonna head back to the marina, and I'm gonna show you the best part. Okay, now I have to cross the street. Look right, Ava. Remember, look right. And the best part is a 5-minute walk just outside the back of the marina. Aldi's, baby! I promise we are not sponsored by Aldi's, but because we're not gonna have a car and we're gonna be riding bikes or walking everywhere, it's so nice to have a grocery store so close. especially when winter comes. Down this little road, past the boatyard, through this little walkway, and then we're back at the marina. Through the gate, down the ramp, and back home to Athena and our new little stuff. I love you. The weather is clearly starting to change. It's starting to get colder and windier, and that means it's Halloween time. And even though we're not in the US and Mads and I are not kids, we are still celebrating Halloween on Athena. And that means things are going to get spooky. Okay, Spidey here has all of our supplies ready. Let's get to decorating the spooky spider web. One giant spooky spider. Of course, a couple of spooky baby spiders. Some spooky lights for effect. And 2 pumpkins. But of course, this guy won't be truly spooky until we get a face carved in him. Here's a quick sneak peek. Of course, the big reveal won't happen till tonight at midnight. Just kidding. It'll just happen when it gets dark out. Probably around like 6 o'clock.
I'm really excited to see those 2 lights in action out in the cockpit tonight. I think it's going to make a big difference out there. But before we can do that, of course, there's the small matter of wiring and programming the Czone boxes. There are 2 boxes I'll be installing today. There's the signal interface, which is connected to this radio module that's controlled by these key fobs, so we can turn on and off things using the key fobs. And then the second box is the Contact 6 Plus, which is actually what's going to be powering stuff, like for instance, the lights out in the cockpit. The radio module is just a little box of relays that get closed when you hit the corresponding button on the key fob. When that happens, we apply 12 volts to the signal interface, and then we can do stuff based on that. So with a signal interface, you can use a whole bunch of different stuff for controlling your digital switching. The Contact 6 Plus, as the name implies, has 6 outputs, and these are dimmable, so we can dim the lights here in the saloon and out in the cockpit. But we'll use one connection for the lights in the cockpit, one for the lights here in the saloon, one for the lights in the head, and then one for our stern nav light, and that leaves 2 open for future fun. Before installing these Czone boxes, we have to give them a unique ID using these dip switches. I've already done that, so let's get to some wiring. I think I've got those 2 boxes in there wired up correctly now, and I've also connected the control panel from earlier to the NMEA 2000 network, because that is how all of these things are talking to each other. So let's get this all closed up so we can get started on the programming. Oops, but before we do that, it's worth noting that that little box in there, that is the NMEA 2000 to USB gateway we're going to use for the programming. Now might also be a good time to mention that this Czone stuff is not for everybody. There is a bit of a learning curve, especially with the programming of it. It's a little fiddly and not super intuitive. This is what the tool looks like. There is a row of tabs up here. There's modules, inputs, loads, and circuits. Those are the most common tabs. There are some other ones, but we're not going to be fiddling around in those today. Let's start by creating the inputs for the key fobs. There are 4 buttons here, so let's create 4 inputs. So that's going to be key fob 1, 2, 3, and 4. And those need to be of type switch to battery plus. And here they are, 4 inputs. That should do the trick. Right now, nothing happens when I click these. That's because we haven't configured a load or a circuit yet. Here we're telling the system that on the Contact 6 Plus at the nav station, which I've named like that, on output number 4, we've got the saloon lights. I've not enabled load shedding because we don't want that on lighting. I have enabled smooth start, which means the lights will dim up and dim down when you turn them on and off. Now it's time to create a circuit. That's how we make something happen when we click a button. There's a lot of flexibility here, which means there's multiple ways of doing the same thing, which can make it a little bit complicated, but yeah, let's get started. My goal for these key fobs is to be able to turn on and off all of the interior lights and all of the exterior lights from outside of the boat. So I have created a circuit here named All Exterior Lights and another one named All Interior Lights. Each of these circuits contains the loads I want to manipulate under that circuit. So for instance, the All Interior Light circuits has the lights in the head, the V-berth, over the washer and dryer, and here in the saloon, while the exterior circuit has the cockpit lights and the deck light. And then for each circuit, we can assign circuit controls. So for instance, for this one, which is the exterior lights, we can see that key fob 1 toggles it. And for the interior lights, it is key fob number 2, but also keypad number 1, which is the keypad next to the companionway. So yeah, let's write this configuration to the network and see if it works. If this works, it's probably going to look horrible on camera because of the PWM dimming and these LEDs. To the naked eye, it's a very smooth transition. There's absolutely no flickering, but let's see what happens. Yep, lights on here in the saloon and lights on in the forward cabin. If you remember from the configuration, the other way of manipulating this circuit was by the keypad here. So let's see if we can turn off the lights. Yep. Perfect. This only really scratches the surface of what we can do with digital switching. We could also do what's called PGN switching, where we're listening to data on the Enemy 2000 network. For instance, the tank level, if that drops below a certain level in the tank behind the engine, I could automate the transfer of fuel from the other diesel tank using these boxes. And yeah, that's just an example. There are also features here that I can't play with. For instance, time of day switching, because I'm missing a crucial piece of hardware. To be able to use this, you need a CZone display, and those displays are horrendously expensive. So yeah, time of day switching, not an option. Something I haven't mentioned yet are modes, and that's actually a bit of a shame because they have an excellent guru here for manipulating or configuring modes. With the click of a button, we can put the boat into different modes. And for instance, I've just created this night mode here, which turns on the red LEDs out in the cockpit and maybe some other spooky stuff. Now, with the click of a single button, we can turn on scary mode.
Boo! Happy early Halloween!
The lights out in the cockpit over the Dodger are awesome, both in white and in red. And once we've had the arch modified, I'll add a couple more lights on there and the cockpit will be like a frickin' nightclub. Like I mentioned, being able to control the lights right from the companionway is something I've really missed from aboard Obelix, and now we have that. Now we still need to add some switches for localized control, and a little bit later this winter I also want to get into some of that PGN switching I mentioned, but yeah, we'll save that for later. I had hoped that we could share our plan for the winter projects with you guys in this video, but we're not quite done with that plan yet, so that'll have to wait until next week. But thanks to our friend Daryl here at the Marina, we now have a good lead on plywood, a stainless guy, a canvas workshop, and a bunch of other stuff, so we are making good progress. It feels good to be back in DIY mode. We're not quite up to speed yet, so please bear with us, but very soon we'll have everything planned out and then we can start making some good progress.
We'll end this video by again wishing everybody a slightly early happy Halloween.
Yep, and we hope to see all of you guys back here aboard Athena next week for yet more DIY fun. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video,
please remember to leave a like.
See you!